I thought if I have a good day, maybe 2:45, might be doable. And then on the day, I ran 2:32.
Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. My name is Christian Everdell Warwick. Warwick runs on Instagram, YouTube. Really happy to have you here for this episode with Howard. In today's episode, we're having Howard Calvert on, and he has a very different approach to marathon running. He ran a sub 2:30 marathon in London, and he also did some ultra races just a couple of months before the race. As you can probably hear, my voice is a little off right now because I obviously caught a cold after our wedding. And so I'm not going to talk much today. It's kind of exhausting to even be here recording right now. So, as you can tell, running is not going that well these days. Talked to my nutritionist, Casey, yesterday, and we kind of talked about how it is also nice to focus on wedding stuff and doing those things instead of running, but obviously didn't expect to get sick just after. And before you judge me, didn't really party that hard. Christine caught a cold from something, and then obviously I got it. So, yeah, enjoy this episode with Howard, and also maybe have a laugh at how I pronounce his name in the intro here. Okay, Howard, welcome to the Marathon Podcast. Very happy to have you here.
Great to be here. Really excited to chat.
Yeah, me too. We briefly started talking before the recording, and like I told you, I don't know that much about you. I know some of the things that you've done. I'm very excited to hear more about it. So why don't you present yourself, like who you are outside of running, and also how you got into the running space?
Okay, so my day job is a journalist. I have been working within magazines and digital publishing for sort of 25 years now. I do a bit of writing about running, which is obviously one of my main interests. So yeah, and then in my spare time, I've been running for about the same amount of time, probably 25 years. I did my first marathon, which was London in 2004. So I was about 25 at that point, I think. And it was, post university. In those days, it was a lot easier to get into London. First application, I got straight in. Uh,
Not
Absolutely loved.
1.3 million applicants.
Exactly, yeah. It was like I think in those days there was talk that if you didn't get in 3 years in a row, you automatically got a place in the 4th year
Yeah.
because, but anyway, I got in, did it once, did 3.5 hours, absolutely died, obviously didn't know anything about nutrition, training, strength training, any of that. It was a sort of experience I wanted to do and just kinda tick off at that point. But loved it, but kind of, didn't really think about doing another marathon, for probably over 10 years after that. I went through a brief triathlon phase as lots of runners do, dabbled in that, a bit of cycling, a bit of road cycling. I was still doing sort of 10Ks and things, and then, so yeah, I think the next challenge was, I was mid-30s and it was a lot harder to get into London at that point. So I'd been applying for a few years, not getting in. Finally got a spot in 2016 and was like, I think a sub 3 is a good target. I think I might just about have it in me. So went all out on a sub 3 that year. I was 2 minutes under, so 2:58. Just got, and I thought at that point that was the sort of the pinnacle that I would ever achieve. I was absolutely. It was one of. It still is one of my highlights of my running sort of career. It was just such a great moment, and I thought at my age at that point, I probably wouldn't get any faster than that. Um, so after that was 2016. I did an ultra for the first time that year as well, 50-mile ultra along the South Downs Way in the south of England, and kind of absolutely loved it. and since then, I've been sort of doing a lot more ultras, increasing the distance. Went up to 100K, then 100 miles. I've run sort of in the mountains in Europe, across the UK. Absolutely love it, but also still love doing road marathons. The big city road marathons. It's always got that appeal to me. So I kind of branch across both sides of trail running and road running, and love them both. They both got different appeals, but yeah. So about 3 years ago, I joined my local athletics club, um, and that was kind of a huge moment in terms of inspiring me for what might be possible. There are people at the club in their 50s and 60s still smashing out incredible times
Hmm.
across all distances, from 400 meters up to marathon distance. And I just found it, just being in training with these uh, inspirational athletes really kind of pushed me on to show me what was achievable. Um, so it's 2023. I think I did another marathon, trying to get a good for age time to get back into London. And I
So,
did two.
so was this at the time just your third marathon then? So you had that
Uh,
first one and then you did a sub 3,
yeah, I did
or
one
did you
more.
do more?
I did one more at London, but it was a fancy dress. I was dressed as a lobster,
Okay.
um,
Okay.
and went for the world record for fastest crustacean there, which was 3:14. But I didn't get it. It was a crazy hot year, 2018, and I was melting. But that was another great experience. But yeah, that was
Yeah.
my third road marathon. So
Yeah. Okay.
2023, I'd done trail marathons, in the
Hmm.
meantime, but yeah, 2023, so I was, about 45 or something. I did Brighton Marathon, to try and get a good for age for London. I did 250, and, so that got me into London the next year, but it also got me a Boston, place,
Yeah.
Boston
Right.
qualifier.
Yeah.
So I thought, again, I thought this will be the only opportunity I'll get to probably run Boston. So, I took that, Boston qualifier in 24. I ran Boston then and London in the same week. Uh,
Wow.
Not always advisable, but then coming back from Boston, so I finished Boston in 254, 253. I think it was a hot year, 24.
Yeah, it was very hot.
It was, I absolutely loved it. But, was kind of gunning for a sub 250, but it didn't happen. Got straight on the plane back that afternoon, back to London, and there were loads of people on that plane sort of flying back to also run London, 6 days later.
Hmm.
That was cool. London then was just a matter of sort of getting round and, enjoying it. Um, so then it was sort of like, last year, focused towards London again, and could I set a PB of sub 250, aged, I was 46 at this point, and, I focused more on a sort of big training block. I thought if I have a good day, maybe 245, might be doable, and then on the day, I ran 232. So, I knew my training had been going well, and some of the times I've been hitting on the marathon pace blocks, I was above what I was sort of thinking.
But did you know when you lined up that, okay, I'm good enough to. So this is interesting because I don't think I've ever had anyone on, like, yes, you run a little bit faster than you think, but the difference between a 245 and a 232, it's so great, like, such a big difference. So I would just assume that you have to pretty early on in the race realize this is too slow, I need to run faster, or did you just go by feel so you didn't have to?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
I went,
Yeah.
but I didn't put a target time on myself at all. So I wanted to run it on feel and just see. how it went. You know, if I blew up halfway,
Mm,
whatever, so be it. I kind of thought I got
mhm.
nothing to lose. So I went
So,
out.
so what feeling did you leave that phrase with?
Well, I was overjoyed. Again, it was a really hot day. Last year's London, a lot of people struggled. I felt fine throughout, and I hit every mile, pretty much the same, which I've never done before. Yeah, I was just happy. I think I just had a good training block. Everything had sort of gone to plan. Just really enjoyed the day, not having a target time. It was just absolutely loved it. But it does then you do 2:32 and think, well, I've got to try for sub 2:30 now.
Yeah,
And it would be another year older. I was looking at the times in my once. Yeah, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
33, 33.
33. Okay, so once you get over 35, you go into the age categories,
Yeah.
and they'll split it to 45 to 49. So
I was almost panicking there for a second. I thought you were gonna tell me once you pass 35, it's like then you're done. And I was like, please don't say
no,
that.
no, no. I was saying, you've got at least 15 years
Yeah,
still
yeah.
to improve. But as you get older, I've certainly found that I think a lot of older runners will look in the age category to see
Mm,
what their position is there. It gives you a new level of competition that you
yeah.
might not have had previously. So, you know, um, I looked afterwards in the category to see how many 45 to 49-year-old runners had gone under 2:30. I think it
Mhm.
was about 9. So I
Yeah.
was thinking,
Wow.
well, I mean, another year older, will it be possible to do that? And I
Did you look for just that race or just in general
just in
all over the
London,
world?
yes, that was just
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
on the day last year, and I just thought, well, I've got this opportunity, I've got to throw everything at it, and just give it a shot. So this year, that was the target, and I've been sort of working towards that well, I mean, this is the other thing that came into the equation, and the same as last year, I did a 100-mile ultra marathon at the end of January. So a
Yeah.
race called the Arc of
Wow.
Attrition, which takes place in Cornwall, down in the south of the UK. Um, which, yeah, I did for the first time last year. Absolutely loved it. It takes well, the front of the pack will do 19 hours. It took me just under 26
Wow.
last year. This year, slightly slower. It was in the middle of a storm. The weather was absolutely brutal. Um, it was a challenge just to get round. I think the DNF rate was something like 60%. So
Oof.
it was a tough year this year. But you know, I finished that. That was the end of January. It took about 2 weeks off, and then started straight into the block for London. So. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I've had a few people say, "Do you think that helps your marathon training?" And I guess, in terms of building an aerobic base, you can't really beat ultra training
No.
for that kind of thing. For base building, I've been training for that 100 miler from sort of October, November the previous year. So you've got a good few months of running long and slow, and the guy who the two guys who came first and second in this 100 miler arc of attrition also ran London. They both, certainly Hugh Tibbs. He dabbles in. He's so fast, on the road as well. So I think he ran 2:27 at London this year.
Mhm.
So it's interesting how some athletes are crossing over between the two. You've seen trail runners as well. Some elites running road marathons recently, like Petter Engdahl. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
he ran 2:22, I think, at Boston. Courtney
Mhm.
Waltz has been running road marathons as well just before Christmas. I think she was doing under 240, 238 or something. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting the sort of crossover and yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that sort of led up to this year's London, which yeah, which you're still not sure at this age whether a sort of sub 230 it could be possible. My the sessions I was doing in training were kind of giving me hope that it might be possible, but you don't know, you never know. You know what a marathon's like;
Mhm.
anything it could throw anything at you. So so yeah, the day of the marathon itself, we were a lot better with the weather this year. I think a bit like this year's Boston, conditions were
Yeah.
pretty favorable.
Hmm.
Nice cool start, and yeah, the race itself, I went off hard. Uh, so for sub 230, you're looking at 3:33 a kilometer. And I was checking my watch to start off. I was probably more like 3:26, 27 for the first
Wow.
half, which I knew was, everyone says, don't do this. Don't, don't do this in a marathon. As a coach, I would say that to my athletes, myself, but I felt like, it was my sixth running of London, and I felt like, I knew what was in store. Um, if I could get to halfway, I've got a bit of leeway um, for the second half, which is exactly what happened. I started to slow, and I needed those sort of 4 or 5 seconds per kilometer. I was running slower, and it came down to I knew what the 30K time was that I needed. I was about a minute under at that point. And then it's just sort of got, hanging on. Um, it was the mental battle definitely during sort of miles 21 to 22. And yeah, I came around the corner to see. Have you done London?
No, I have not.
So
It's
you,
too hard to get in for me as a
it is.
Norwegian.
Well, it might be over 2 days next year, so you might lose.
Yeah. Yeah.
You come in front of Buckingham Palace. You're about less than 400 meters.
Yeah.
You go around the corner, and you don't see the finish till that point, but
Hmm.
not as far as Boston to get to the finish line, but you can see the time, and it just ticked over to 2:28, and, I knew it would be fairly close. I've got 2 minutes, but it was quite a long way. But I got over in 2:29.01 seconds. So, I mean,
Wow.
I still can't quite believe
Amazing.
it, but it was,
And just repeat your age again for the listeners so they.
so 47. I mean, there were, so in the end, there were, in the age category, there were, I think, 6 runners ahead of me, who could be, any and more incredibly, there are two in the 50 to 55 who went sub 2:30.
Yeah.
So, it's incredible, some of these what some of these runners are achieving out there, for sure. So, yeah, a great day, but, i hopefully it will, show that PBs, whatever age, are still achievable. 'Cause
Yeah. Yeah. I find this super inspiring. It's funny because when you have a podcast, you get some comments here and there. And one of the comments was, this is months ago, something about this host seems to just use his guests to become a better runner himself. And and like, to be fair, I think that at least the way I look at it, if I want to be better myself, I have to ask you the questions that I think will make me better. But I assume that the same goes for the people listening. So I'm gonna use this episode, like, and I'm not gonna try to hide that because my goal is to run a 2:29 in Valencia in December. And so I'm definitely gonna ask you today like some advice on what you think will, like, took you to the 229, and what you would do. And I know that you're also coaching, so it's very interesting. But it's also so fascinating with the ultra training that you're doing, right? Because I think that the one thing that I'm trying to solve still is the mileage part. I feel like, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners will be able to relate to that. Maybe you can relate to, I don't know what it was like for you in the beginning, but it's so hard because you want to train more. You might want to run more, but you know that, okay, my knees can't handle it, or my calves can't handle it, or something can't handle it. And you're afraid to push it because you don't want to mess it up. So it's not about not having the energy or the motivation to do more. It's more about trying to be smart and not overdoing it. So I guess, like, an open question for you now that you, because it seems like it's just been what, 3 years since you ran your first sub. No, was it sub three in 2016?
Yeah, sub
And
3,
then, yeah,
2016, yeah. And then,
and then 2023 you did 250.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yes. So
yeah,
so then it's been like more than 20 minutes since, yeah, in the last 3 years.
yep, yeah.
Yeah. And what would you say, like, if you were to say there's one thing, you did mention that you had a good block. What would you say is like the one thing, or, yeah, one factor to actually get you down to the 229, and maybe even just down to 232, because that's the biggest step that you made, I guess, like, or
Yeah.
the leap.
I mean, yeah, it's difficult to probably pin down one thing. I think actually thinking about it, saying I had a good block this time, it wasn't that great because of injuries. I found I was, as I was pushing myself harder than I ever had done before, there were issues cropping up almost weekly, and I think I jumped the volume up too quickly, at the beginning, and it led to a bit of a knee issue, which I needed to take 10 days out where I was cycling, no running at all, which was kind of
Mm,
bang in the middle of the block, which wasn't ideal. But I mean, at this age, you kind of expect there to be things like that happening. You're just trying to do all you can to manage it and not let the issues become overwhelming to your training. So I mean, in terms of volume, I don't. I was trying to do as much more than I'd ever done before, but I think that's what led to the sort of overuse injury. So my average weekly volume was probably around 110 kilometers. So I mean,
yeah,
that is, I wanted to get higher than that, for sure, and maybe I'll try that next year. But it's a balance, also with my life. I've got children, yeah, work, family life, walking the dog and everything. It's just
yeah,
trying to fit all these pieces together is not easy, as I'm sure everyone will, um, sort of have the same problems that, you're trying to avoid injury, you don't wanna overdo it. So, yeah, it's difficult, but, I'm trying to utilize time, for instance, when my children are doing sports or activities, and I have to drive them somewhere and they're training for an hour or two. That's the perfect time to sort of get a session in. So you just got to be a bit more sort of clever using your time, I think,
yeah.
especially when you've got
But
kids.
it's so interesting and fascinating for someone like me who's never attempted, or I can't say that I haven't thought about doing an ultra, but it's very, like, it feels like a very distant goal for me, like not anything that I'll do anytime soon. But then it's so interesting when I talk to people on this podcast or elsewhere. You hear the same thing as you saying, you like, your mileage is around 110K per week, right? Like, and what that means is that you are doing that 100 miler, like, that's one race where you're doing so much more than like your weekly mileage. And so just being able to run 100 miles in kind of like one go, or in, like you said, to 25 hours or whatever you said it took you. But how does your body react to that? And I would just assume that if you do that in January, I'm still tired from Boston, and that was like now coming up on 5 weeks ago, I guess.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm just slightly lucky in that I do often bounce back fairly quickly, but I mean, it's taking longer as I getting older. Yeah, I'm the same, still recovering from London, sort of 2.5 weeks later. But I mean, I felt pretty beaten up after London, actually, much more than after doing the 100 miler,
Yeah,
interestingly. But obviously a different kind of race. Ultras, you're not redlining it for
yeah.
2 or 3 or 4 hours at a time. Um, you're generally, unless you're at the front of the pack, you're kind of, you're hiking the hills, you're trying to conserve your energy to get around and pace it much more sensibly. So it's a whole different way of racing, but, you know, I this the thing that draws me into ultras is just, the sort of puzzle solving element to it, that every race throws in different things at you that you can't always predict, whether it's the weather, it's your nutrition, it's the gear that you're
Mm,
carrying, it's the terrain, whatever. You're constantly trying to work out, uh, how to actually finish this race, and that's something
mhm,
that I find a lot harder than, um, marathon running has, a fairly set, way of training. I mean, there's obviously loads of variables within that, but, yeah, it's a different sort of mindset and way of training, which they're both challenges that I like to sort of very
mhm.
different challenges, but I like
But
both.
but do you feel like you discover so you were saying that you did the you've done 100 miles in January 2 years in a row, and so you've improved significantly in both years. Obviously, like from 250 to 232 is a lot, and but it's still from 232 to 229. And I don't know about you, but it almost sounds like you potentially could have done an even better London marathon if you ran a bit slower the first half. So
Yep.
you've improved quite a lot. And the first year that you did that, which was 2025, I guess, was it almost like you happened to realize that this worked, or was it always a plan to that you were thinking that this would help you run faster in London with the 100
No,
miler?
yeah, it wasn't. It was just a race that I wanted to do. I've been wanting to do for a few years. It just so happened that I thought, well, I could do that, recover, and then start the training block into, London. It would work out quite well. I've got just enough time to fit it in. So it wasn't planned like that. I think, it just worked out well. I think
Hmm.
what worked well for my, 2:32 in London was I hadn't really up to that point done sort of, long runs with marathon pace within them. So,
Yeah.
I worked to a much more structured plan. I was doing more, high intensity sessions probably than I'd ever done before. Two a week with a long.
For the 25 block or for this
Yeah.
block?
For both blocks, but
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the 20, I think, this is what made the difference to the
yeah.
first time round. So yeah, those high intensity sessions some were with my athletics club, and some were just sort of solo,
Yeah.
you know, uh, and then, yeah, some long runs with, marathon pace within them, which, blocks of what, 2 times 20 minutes or whatever. It was just
Mhm.
getting that pace dialed in, but I was, again, not setting myself a specific pace. It was just like what I felt like I could sustain for a faster marathon.
Yeah.
And those times were coming up, at the end of the session, I'd have a look at the times, and they might translate to, maybe around a 2:40 marathon, or
Mm.
even under that, and I was kind of like, "Well, can I sustain that for that amount of time?" It's faster than I ever run, so,
Yeah, and it's much faster, right? Because you go from your PR being, if we use kilometers here, your PR being around 250, which means that you're not even running every K faster than 4 minutes, right? For your PR, and then you get down to, what is it, 340 or something for the 232, something like that,
yeah, some
or
it's
is it faster than
yeah, maybe
340?
faster, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure, 2:37 or something.
No. Anyways, you're going down like a lot per k, or per mile, and so I think that if it's okay with you, I would like for us to focus actually more on the block last year, because that's almost more interesting in a lot of ways than from 232 to 229. Although I'm sure you did a lot of good things, but then you're already at that level that a lot of us can't really relate to. And for me, I can't relate to that yet. So I can. It's much easier to relate to being someone who's, the year before in Boston, you ran, what did you say, 253, 54
Yep,
on a hot day. So say that is like a 250 or 248, 49. I'm so curious about, like, when you did say that you had more structure, and we're going to dive into the details. And you started talking a little bit about this already, but what would you say that from uh, Boston/London in 2024 and up until London 2025, where you did the 232, what were the changes that you made? And did you get to like a specific moment where you were like, okay, now I'm gonna change things and do it my way? Because I know that you've been self-coached, right?
yep, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, I mean, I have to try and recall what my training involved that year. I mean, it's probably pretty similar to what I did this year. Um, so it would have been more sessions of, I think, the high intensity sort of lactate threshold, um, pushing the LT2 up, trying to push that higher with longer reps, across. Certainly, there was a lot of 6 or 8 times a mile reps, and then building that distance up. So you're then doing 2K reps, 3K, up to 5K reps, and I'd try and keep the rest time between them pretty short. Uh, with 5Ks, probably 2 or 3 minutes. So you're
Mhm.
not getting much recovery. You're going straight back into the next one. And yeah, I mean, I don't. I think apart from adding volume, um, and I think I was even doing my easy runs a bit too quick. That year, that's something that this year I've focused more on slowing down more during the easy run,
Mhm.
because I think I was probably overdoing that, and it wasn't helping me recover, especially for the next harder session. So
Yeah.
um, yeah,
But
it's
do you think that you just, like, and I don't like to use that term, but do you think that you're just very talented, so that when you upped your mileage, and like you said, you've also been blessed with the fact that you're not getting injured as much as maybe some other runners? Do you think that is the reason why it worked, so that when you started just training more and activating your body more, you kind of got the results? Or do you think that what you did is more universal, so that if someone was to copy that they would, if not have the same progress, but still have a lot of progress?
um, I mean, that's a hard one to answer, because I think everyone would vary in their responses to that sort of training. So yeah, I think maybe it's the because I in since 2016 I've probably done 20 or more ultra marathons. So across that 10-year period, um, that has helped build up. It's been a constant cycle of 2 or 3 ultras a year, constantly building that base. Constantly running at an aerobic base as well as doing harder sessions. So maybe that helped just sort of lay the foundations, and then it's been stacking the bricks on top of that. But it's just for me, it's come later, at a later stage. Uh,
Yeah.
I wasn't in my 20s or 30s. Well, mid up to my mid 30s, I wasn't, sort of going out and running hard a lot of the time. So, maybe that helped. But I think there are club athletes running faster than me, who are older than me, who've been running fast their whole lives and running hard their whole lives. So, yeah, there's so many variables that
Hmm.
it's difficult to really
Yeah,
say.
and I think that will be the same for all of us, right? It will be hard to just pinpoint this one thing or say that okay, this will work for everyone, and we all of us we also have different starting points, right? Like where you've been before, and you mentioned that you started running in was it 2004? You said that that
Yeah,
was when you
yeah.
did your first, yeah, and then you did some triathlon, and like I'm sure there was a lot of hours. You had a lot of hours of training during these years, so you kind of build this foundation for yourself in terms uh, of training and getting used to training more, and and then you get to a point where you're able to push through more. But let's focus first then on your ultras and your training, because what this means, like what makes you stand out a little bit compared to someone like me, for instance, where I have the marathon goals, and I might have like a shorter race and during my block, but I won't really have any longer runs. Like personally, I haven't done any longer distance than the marathon, right? So for you, what does a normal block look like, and how do you balance this? Do you focus on the ultra that you're doing, and then that's kind of like what you're training for, and then as soon as you're done with that, then you switch to the more marathon specific training?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and I would say, and this won't be the same for everyone, but training for an ultra for me is fairly similar to training for a marathon. I won't be doing runs longer than I would do for a marathon block, sort of 20, 22 mile max.
Yeah.
Um, that's, if I just don't have time to, I know some ultra runners will go out and do back to back 4 hour or 5 hour runs on a weekend, but I haven't got the time to do that. And I'm not sure, to be honest, at my age, that it would really benefit me. It might do more harm than good. So yeah, the thing that would vary it up would be I'd be running on the trails sort of 100% of the time, probably,
Yeah.
where possible. I'll always, even when I'm marathon training, I'll prefer to run off road where I can.
Hmm.
And that,
Why is that? Is that just because you enjoy it more?
yeah, I enjoy it more. I don't know whether it helps in terms of impact, but I I like where I live is the south of England, so it's not very hilly, but you get a lot of undulating hills, and I try and make runs as hilly as I can. When I'm training for an ultra, there'll be a lot of hill reps off road, so I'll do 15 or 20 reps up a short,
Mm.
sharp 100 meter hill. I'll also have more recently been doing incline treadmill runs, in the gym or on the Stairmaster. Even
Mm.
I was experimenting with a weighted vest this year, before this year's arc of attrition in January. Um, so yeah, I'll still do the sort of high intensity sessions though in my ultra training and sort of keep them up. I think it all helps even when you're doing a 100-mile race.
Mhm.
You just
But do those saying that, like, cause I feel uh, like you said, we do see more trail runners approaching the road races, and they're running faster in a marathon, and so it's not like we haven't seen that, but because it's not, I wouldn't say it's like super common yet. You usually have like the marathon runners who are specific marathon runners, and now I'm talking about the elite runners, but you have them and that they are focusing more on the road, and then they're running faster on the road. And then I feel like also people at like my level or slower or your level, people are like, oh, you like trails, that's okay, but like you have to be on the road, you have to get, the paces that you need, and for your strides to be okay, and I don't think it's going to work for you. Like, what would you say to those people saying that in terms of using just the trails for easy runs and for maybe the hill work that you were talking about as well?
Yeah, I think it helps strengthen your legs, strengthen your muscles, especially around your feet and ankles. Because the terrain, if it's soft, it's sandy, you know, there's who's the coach, Percy Cerruti used to train an Australian coach used to train his runners on sand dunes, literally
Hmm.
sprinting up and down sand dunes to help build their sort of muscular endurance. So, it definitely, I'd always recommend it because the roads, not for everyone, but it can become a bit boring if you're running the same sort of loop or the same route
Yeah.
all the time. Get on the trails. It's you're closer to nature. You got much more inspiring views and
Hmm.
challenging terrain. So for your easy runs, it's a great way to go out and do 10 miles of a slightly hilly, undulating trail run. And then, save the roads or track for the harder sessions.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned the stairmaster or treadmill walking with incline. So that means that in addition to the 110K that you were talking about, you also do some cross training. How many hours of training have you done, like through these last two blocks per week?
Um, what on sort of gym machines?
No, it just like overall, because I feel like this is the issue that I've seen with running, is that a lot of people are asking you what was your mileage like,
Yeah.
and then if you answer that question only and you said 110K, but then in addition to that you had 10 hours of stairmaster training,
Yep.
then obviously I could never copy what you were doing and expect to have the same results, because 110K plus stairmaster and 110K without the stairmaster, two very different things.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think it's probably around 8 or 9 hours, maybe total a week. So that's with two strength and conditioning sessions of about half an hour each, which is about all that I can fit in, I think.
Hmm.
But I didn't use the Stairmaster for the marathon block. But
Okay, so
I
that
wa
was more for the ultra.
that's more for the ultra. I was on a treadmill, now and then, because, with the spring marathon, like with Boston, you're doing a lot of, running in the dark and bad weather. So, yeah,
Hmm.
sometimes I get on the treadmill. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so then we know that you're focusing more on the ultra, but you do have
Mm.
it's almost like marathon training also for that. But if we were to now look at, you said you took 2 weeks kind of off, or 2 weeks to adjust back into training after the ultra. What would a normal marathon block week look like for you this spring or last spring when you were training for London?
So, it would be running, 7 days a week. Um, I tried to do some doubles this time, but I think that quickly led to an injury. So it's really just one run a day, singles, and Monday would usually be a recovery easy run of around 10 miles, following sort of because I would have done the long run the day before. Tuesday, usually a session. That would be a solo session, and I try and get in more volume into that session. Because I had about 2 hours, usually because it was while my daughter was training herself, I'd be able to rack up maybe 20 to 22K, and within that would be, probably about 8 to 10K of work. Um,
Hmm.
Wednesday then would be another easy run of 10K to 15K maybe. Uh,
But before for that session or that workout
Yeah.
on the Tuesday, so you had 21 to 22K in total, 8 to 10K of work. Was the rest of it like, was it just a longer warm up or
Yep.
a longer cool down?
Yeah,
Yeah. And
exactly.
so then, yeah.
Yeah. But 5 to 7K warm up, not fairly easy, and then a cool down afterwards. So yeah. Um,
Hmm.
and then Thursday would be either another solo session or it would be a club session, which we do on the track or road. Um, so probably 15K of running total there. Friday, another easy run, 10K or so. Saturday, again, easy. And then Sunday would be the long run, which I didn't do. I didn't complicate it this time. Um, it would be some of the long runs I did completely off road. So 20 miles, just pushing the pace. So it wouldn't be easy pace. It would be, you can't really do marathon pace off road. Uh,
No.
but I'd be definitely pushing it more than usual, and then I did a few progression runs. So again, largely on feel rather than hitting specific targets. It would just be ending up around marathon pace. That would be
Yeah.
the only time I sort of be really checking what pace I was at. So building up across 30K, up to, the last 5K, probably hitting marathon pace. But there was
And
one.
how would you, sorry.
Yeah, no, after you go.
No, just how did you feel when you got home from those runs? Like, were you, because obviously if you're hitting marathon pace last 5K, we all know that in training that might seem much harder than it actually does on race day. So when you got back home, what was it like?
I generally felt not too bad actually,
Mm,
and I think they helped, in terms of recovery, for the rest of the week, especially as the volume and intensity built up towards the peak of the block. I think one of the workouts I did a particularly difficult workout. I did one long run that I wanted to make, a bit of a challenge mentally as well as physically. So it was I chose this loop that's sort of 1.5 miles, 1.5K, um,
okay.
where there's no road crossings, and I was going to do basically about 32K on that loop,
Mm,
um, half of which would be at marathon pace, and the first half was about 20 seconds slower than marathon pace. So it was designed to make me wanna quit, um, as a sort of, practice for race day,
yeah.
and it was, it's one of those workouts that you dread. I knew that I didn't particularly wanna do it. It was on my own. It was a windy day, and, I think it really did help though. I completed the workout and, on race day, I could recall that at the darkest moments when which did happen, I was very close to there was definitely a point where I thought it was about mile 20 when I thought I could, you get that thought in your head saying, you could slow down now. Why don't you just
Hmm.
take the foot off the gas for a minute? It'll be fine. And I had to battle that thought because I was just thinking, there's no way that I've gone through all the sessions like that, to kind of miss out on this now. So, the mindset side of it, I think can be huge and make a huge difference, which is something that comes with practice, I think, and
Yeah.
experience. So I mean, that's a whole nother side. You could probably do a whole podcast on that itself,
Yeah,
but
but
yeah,
it's interesting that you did that, and I think that is something that a lot of us can probably relate to, right? I remember especially when I was a speed skater and we had these like long um dry training seasons. We would like, we started training in April, and then we wouldn't start competing until November, and it would just like so many boring workouts. And I remember when I got to August, September, and I started getting tired of it, and the weeks got harder. And I remember I was like, now I've put in so much work since April, May, and all of that would be wasted if I don't keep up the good work going forward up until the season. And I think that that's the same, like you're saying, that during the race, because you don't get that many chances in the marathon. So if you, especially after 20 miles, if you've been pushing for 20 miles, it's not like you can just stop and then run another marathon a week after and run faster. At least most of us can't. And so I think it's great. But was that like your intention when you had the workout, just for you to have almost that advantage or that thought during the race?
I think I did think that if I managed to get through that workout and it went relatively successfully, that I could use that, to fuel any low points during the race day itself.
Yeah.
Because there's an aspect of doing that workout where you think, well, if I hit these times, it'll give me a good indication of what might be achievable on race day.
Hmm.
It's like a double-edged sword because then you can also use it on race day to you know to get you through the difficult parts. Thinking, well, I've done, that training run was almost harder than this in a way because you didn't have crowds behind you. You hadn't had a taper. You were running on fumes or whatever, and it's a whole different experience on race day. So that was definitely helped, I think.
Yeah.
But I think what also helped is kind of certainly for the 2:32 was not sort of restricting myself with a time target. And this is
Hmm.
difficult, I know, because, pretty much every marathon runner, unless it's your first one, would have a target in mind that they wanna hit. But, often you can go, potentially faster than what you're setting yourself,
Yeah.
which is something that I kind of discovered, not on purpose, but, I was just like, I'm running time's not on my side anymore. I'm just gonna give it all I've got. And,
Hmm.
if I was checking my watch going, "Well, I should be running 3:40 pace, but I'm going too fast, I'm gonna crash and burn." I would have slowed down, and you never know what you might have achieved otherwise. So, it might not work for everyone, but I would definitely.
No, but I think you're right. Like I had Jeff Stern on the podcast. The episode comes out the day after we're recording this, but I talked to him yesterday, and he's like, he was a trail runner, and he was, or like an ultra runner and marathoner and bike racer, and now like um, uh, working with Sunto. And we were talking about just this, that usually when you show up on the race day and you don't have all the expectations, you don't really have,
Mm.
you know, like I have to do this or I want to do this, then you might perform better, and just you go out there and you have fun. And I mean, I had the same experience in Boston this year where I was like, I have no idea what I can do. My coach told me what he thought I could do, and I was like, no, I don't think I can do that. And then looking back, I probably could have if I was just being a bit more aggressive from the beginning. But I I think that you're right. It's so easy to be caught up with it, and that's also something that I've asked some guests on the podcast about it, and it seems like you didn't really have to deal with it. But for me, I see that because I've had quite a lot of progress over just the last year. The times that I'm running or the pace that I had in at my marathon now almost is intimidating. So if I am to look at my watch, I'm like, oh wow, this is fast, you know, and that will be the same if I am gonna reach my goal of running at sub 2:30 in Valencia. It's gonna be intimidating because right now that is not a pace that I can do for that long, and then I have to kind of switch that mindset and understand that okay, I'm just gonna go where I feel like you did, and just run and have fun.
Yeah, I mean, the mindset is so important. Like, if you can get into your head, and I think it was the Thomas Nobb's podcast with you I was listening to actually, and when he changed his mindset, I think, when he was going for, was it 209 maybe he got, I think
Hmm.
he was around 212, and he began to, see himself as a 209 guy, and, like,
Yeah,
he did everything he could to, um, become that guy, and it obviously within his head, it sort of solidified, and it ended up happening, but I think something changed, so I after I did 2:32 in London last year, I was in Berlin, in September, and I thought, well, that'll be the time I'll give, sub 2:30 a shot then, and,
yeah,
uh, I did the block and everything, but the I I felt like it went alright, but kind of going into the race, in my head, there was definite doubt there. I was thinking this, you're not gonna go under 2:30 here. It's too You're too old, the training block didn't go great, whatever. It wasn't in my I didn't think that it was possible. There's definitely
yeah,
doubt there. I went into the race. Obviously, it was a hot year, another hot race, and, I knew within 2K that I felt my legs didn't feel great. I thought this is gonna be hard anyway, and sure enough, I was fading sort of halfway. I was
yeah.
just about on target, but I was like, "I can't keep this up for," so I
Mhm.
ended up in 2:39, and, it was almost like I was kind of, my mind wasn't in that place at the start, so
Uh-huh.
it was never gonna happen, but, this time I tried to think, you know, uh, that it was possible, that, you
Yeah,
know, I tried to change my whole way of thinking about it, and, just picture in my head the London Marathon finish line with 2:29:59 on, and maybe it helped, but I think I did feel slightly more confident going into the race than Berlin for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. It's super interesting with the mindset, and I think that that's something that it can be hard to work on. And actually, I recommend one of the episode with his with Thomas's coach because he was talking more about that, and we had an episode where we talked more about that as well. Like because Thomas didn't have any workouts where he hit the pace that he ended up doing in, like when he did that 209 marathon, he didn't have in training, and then all of a sudden he comes to the race and shows up there and he just runs 2 minutes faster than what they were planning on doing. And but that is obviously a result of all the training. And then you if like you said, if you believe it and you do the right things in training, then everything is possible. And so, like in your case, and last thing I want to ask you about in terms of your training, because just to kind of make it clear here, and I feel like I've been asking that question a couple of times, but just to understand it fully and also for the listeners, because for you, training for ultras and training for marathon is the same, but what advantage would you say that, or what benefit do you see to, because if I understand you correctly, the only difference then is that you actually are doing an ultra somewhere in that block. What benefit do you see in doing that ultra for your marathon?
Well, I mean, I think m- mainly building aerobic fitness, to keep building that aerobic base, but also I think general leg strength. You know, uh,
Mhm.
I think that
But
does
do you,
help.
so if I was to challenge you a bit on this, do you feel like that one race when you do 100 miles
Mm.
in 25 hours, do you think that that race or that run by itself will build that much fitness? Or do you think that, or yeah, because if you are running almost the same leading up to it and the training isn't that different, but you are just doing that race, do you think the race in itself, yeah, is helping you?
Uh, I mean, the race itself, maybe not, because it kind of destroys my body a bit. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, and it takes some recovery. Um, but the training block leading into it, definitely, gives me it's essentially like a base building phase of a marathon
Mm,
plan,
yeah.
previous before the 20-week plan starts, maybe.
Yes. So it's kind of like that you extend the marathon block without the more specific part. So you just have more volume, you run more, and you get more of that like base training. So that's what you mean. And then when you're done with that ultra, you get a little bit more specific. So although it looks fairly the same, you get more and more specific, and you almost start that marathon block with a full marathon block behind you, but
Yeah.
without the specific.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess that's probably a good way of putting it. I mean, the ultra block would have maybe, it would certainly have much less high intensity stuff. So
Yeah.
maybe one
Yeah.
session a week. The rest of it
Mm,
is easy running, or a lot of, hill. There's more hill work in that than there is
yeah.
in my marathon block. So then
Mm,
switches into the marathon block, and I'm suddenly doing a lot more at marathon pace,
yeah.
and a lot more, um, just at higher speeds. It's all pretty flat. I mean, I will do
Yeah.
some hills at the start, and the strength work stays the same, really, the strength and conditioning. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah. That makes much more sense than I understand. Like there's a difference, but there's not that. There is a difference there, but it's still like marathon training. That I totally understand what you mean, and I guess like we have to wrap it up soon, but there's one part where, especially coming from the ultra, for you to be able to run for that long, you have to fuel well, you have to do, you know get enough throughout that race. And although the marathon is very different, would guess that your body well in terms of fueling, and you're able to practice that quite a lot. So what does a typical fueling plan look like for you in the marathon distance? How did you fuel for, say, London this year?
I mean, marathons for me, for fueling, I love, because I'm only taking gels for, 2.5 hours. For the 100-mile race, I got to, I think, about 12 hours in of gels, just gels and carb mixed drinks, and I
Wow.
couldn't. That usually happens. I think around 11 to 14 hours seems to be my max of being able to just take liquid nutrition. In the marathon, though, I'm on, so 3 precision hydration, 30-gram gels an hour. Uh, and that's pretty much it. Yeah,
How many carbs
so that's
is that? I'm not.
90 grams an hour,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
Um, and if it's hot, I'll try and carry a electrolyte um,
Mm,
tab in a drink as well. But I feel like, I mean, I took two caffeine gels this time, and I feel like maybe I could go slightly higher on the hourly, you
yeah.
know, but that's something again I keep experimenting with.
Mhm.
What do you take, per hour?
So I'm using Morton, and for Boston, so I'm working with a nutritionist now, and she's been great in helping me fuel more on my runs. And so we were very specific during the Boston block, or especially the last weeks, to just have gels all the time. And she actually had me have a gel every 20 minutes, also on an easy run. So if I went out to run for 45 minutes, I would still have two gels. And so leading up to it, I was building it up, and I was hoping to get up towards the same 90 to 100, I guess, per hour. And then in Boston, I think I solved it perfectly. And what I did, which I've never done before, is that I brought this 300 milliliter bottle with me that I had, and I put 320 mix with Morton. So it was like almost not liquid, it was like porridge. And I was drinking that. And I think, what was that? Because that is how many grams of carb is that? That's quite a lot. So I had like, I think I had 100 or maybe more than 100 grams of carbs that first hour where I was just drinking that. I think that was 80, and then I had another gel at an hour, and I threw the bottle away just before that. And then I just kept it up every 20 minutes from there with Morton gels, and that seemed to work very well. And then I knew from last year that after Heartbreak Hill, I didn't really need anything, because then last year I did take a gel there, and I almost threw up, and it just kind of ruined the rest of the race. And then I felt really good, so I was like, there's no way I can, you know, bunk here now. I know how much I got left, and I mean, I know my body pretty well like that. And so I think I had one just before Heartbreak Hill, and that was the last gel that I had. And then I had some Gatorade on the aid stations and some water, but that was kind of it.
Yeah, and that worked
But
all right.
yeah,
I mean, it's all
yeah, yeah,
every marathon's a learning experience. I mean, everyone says that, don't they? But even things like nutrition and dialing that in, it takes practice, even on race day.
yeah.
Um, so, yeah, but Boston they were giving out Morton gels, weren't they? I seem to remember when I
Yeah, they were. But this time I actually had enough with me, so I didn't grab anything on course. So it was, uh, yeah, I grabbed some last year, but this year I was like, nah, I know that I have enough. And also, especially starting with that bottle, that helped a lot because I didn't have to bring that many gels with me. But it's definitely been, great to work with Casey, who's my nutritionist. It's been great this year. And then I've learned a lot since my first marathon where I think I had my first gel at 40 minutes, and then I had them every 25 maybe kilometer, no, every 25 minutes after that. So I didn't have that much during the race as I do now.
that's but my I mean, my first marathon, I don't think I took a gel, uh, it was Lucozade Sport. I don't know,
Hmm.
if you know
No,
that, but
I'm not.
they give
No.
that out on the course, that was it. It's like a bit like Gatorade, but I had probably
Yeah.
a few sips of that, and I hit the wall massively about 14 miles in. So, yes,
But that's interesting for you as well, right? Like you started in 2004 with that marathon, and there's so much that, like,
yeah,
the difference between then and now in terms of the information now we have, the access to information, but also just like the things that they've learned in terms of fueling. And that is maybe where we're talking a lot about super shoes, but from me coming from sports and just looking 10 years back, the difference between like 2016 and 2026 in terms of the information that we have on fueling. It's such a difference. And I think that that is also a reason why we see so many people, not just the elite, but people like you and me running faster as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that's what's helping all the masters get quicker as well, helping us, get
Yeah,
PBs in as we get older.
exactly. Exactly. Oh, Howard, this has been great. I hope that the listeners are, that they learn a lot and that they see that things are possible. And another thing that a comment that I got, I think, I don't remember where that was, but that was a positive one. It was someone saying that they would love to have someone who's not super young, like a bit older. I'm not saying that you're older, but you know what I mean. It's pretty cool to see that at 47 you're able to run faster and a sub 230. That's really cool and really inspiring. And I think it also proves that it's possible to be in this sport for a long time and have a lot of fun and not, you know, don't think about ceilings and be like, oh, now the body is starting to, to tell me that I can't PR anymore. But that I love the mindset that you have, and it's been a lot of fun talking to you on the podcast. So thank you so much.
Oh, no, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I hope that, listeners can, whatever age they're at, there's always new challenges that you can sort of, aim for, whether it's within your age category or, whatever it is, there's plenty still to aim for.
Yeah, appreciate that and appreciate everything that you shared. So thank you so much for coming on, and I can't wait to see what's your next marathon, by the way.
Well, yeah, I haven't got any in autumn as yet, so it will be, London next year. Um,
Yeah.
I've got a few ultras, like, in the meantime, so,
Oh,
yeah.
maybe I'll see you in London.
Well, yeah, hopefully if you get in, yeah, that'd be great.
Uh, Hope so. Well, thank you again.
Yeah, great to meet you.
Thank you so much to Howard for coming on and for to you for listening. I appreciate you being here. And remember, you can get the marathon hat on the marathonpodcast.com if you are interested in one. And I'll talk to you in the next episode. You'll listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wild Studio.